Chapter 62. Blue. I don't know what I'm doing. It's not like I had a fucking hope in this world before the last 24 hours, but now it's like the world's spinning. My heart's hammering in my throat, and I feel like I'm going to be sick as Master gives me a smile and waves his goodbye. I smile back, but I can't tell if it looks as strained as it feels. Coming back to the school this morning, it shouldn't have been bad. Master hasn't gotten mad at me, and his favor hasn't waned to the point that he's starting to truly discipline me. Still, that doesn't mean anything, especially after the disaster of last night. There's nobody here yet. Nobody that I know, anyway. Just the same scary-looking jackal that's chained up against the wall, and someone I've never seen, much less talked to, sleeping in the back corner. We came in early. I shouldn't be surprised. It's the start of the week. Anyways, my friends and I almost never have overlapping time with all of us present. Someone's always occupied, but 2 or 3 is better than no one. Unfortunately, no one is exactly who I have right now. I try not to make a big deal of it. I try not to let my hands shake as I pick out a spot, one of the colorful bean bags, and curl away from the attendant, pretending to take a nap. Master should be furious with me. I don't know what possessed me to invade his space like I did. He told me in no uncertain terms to leave, but I still came back, towing the line where his door met the stairs like it was enough of a difference that he simply couldn't be mad. It had been so stupid. I pressed too far. He didn't yell, but for the first time, I'm sure that he was really mad at me. I laid in bed for hours, tense as a bowstring, waiting for him to come up, my mind replaying all the horrible things that my masters have done with me in the past for causing them such annoyance. Somehow, it was almost more soul-crushing that he didn't come. He could have done anything to me, let his annoyance out in any way he chose. Instead, I just lay there until the early morning sun started to peek through the window. Everything's wrong. I feel the beginnings of tears stinging my eyes, and I bury my head in the beanbag, desperate to chase away the thoughts that are bringing me to this. He hadn't even seemed to recall his anger in the morning. I'd been walking on eggshells around him. The same skittishness that he'd trained out of me with weeks of work came back overnight. This man has done nothing but care for me. I don't understand why I can't simply trust it. He's taken care of me, cleaned my wounds, never so much as raised an angry hand to me. And all I can do is sit with the ghosts of what's been done to me. It's unfair. My mind circles angrily around that one point, like the unfairness might expunge it from existence. It's unfair that those memories should have such sway over me now. Those owners had enough of me when I was theirs. They shouldn't get me when I've just started to settle in. Even if I hadn't fucked up last night, he should still be mad about the casting. I'd been able to push it out of my mind as we finished out the week. I was weak, and, to be honest, it was a welcome distraction. But Master made quick work of that, and without something to keep my mind off of it, the prospect of returning to school became more and more daunting. And it makes my master's responses all the more confusing. I turn over the little plasticky card in my hand again. Kara had explained what it was. Even if he hadn't, I was there when he made the request and filled out all the paperwork. There's a little description of me on the card, my master's signature, and bold print at the top that spells out the sanction for free, unaccompanied movement on the campus. I read the card some 50-odd times before I can finally tear my eyes away. It seems like such an insignificant little thing. It's no wider or heavier than a playing card, and yet it means so much. When Master first presented it to me, I was scared. I'd been so sure that this was some kind of elaborate trick designed to test whether I would stay put and be good, that I'd nearly frozen up. If not a test, then maybe it was just a warning that he was done with me. Done with constantly having to ferry me around, at least. The thought that my presence might have been an annoyance that was beginning to grate on him was terrifying. But that wouldn't make much sense. Fear and old memories tangle up in my brain like cobwebs in an attic. It makes it hard to see sometimes, and the only chance I really have is to sit still and clear the room. Kara went through a lot of paperwork to get this card for me. If he really wanted me out of his hair, he'd leave me here all the time, not shuttle me out to the specific few classes that allow my presence. I flip through the contents of my bag. I push the notebooks aside. There's no way I have the focus for any of my homework. I find the warm thermos of tea and hold it to my chest, trying to force myself to be grounded by the emanating heat. He doesn't want to get rid of me. He said it himself. He won't throw me away because I'm a bad familiar. He hasn't even made me go to one of Professor Berg's classes since our little disaster. It's only a matter of time. Some less than helpful part of my brain supplies. I know I'm right. Professor Berg teaches 2 of my master's classes, and both of them do require my presence, at least on some days. We're going to have to do other castings at some point. It's my purpose. It's the reason he bought me. It could be worse, my mind supplies. At least he cares somewhat about me. My mind drifts back to Eniki's claim to be able to smell the chemistry between us. I suppose it could be true. Only as much chemistry that has to develop from living together and sharing a bed for months. The man has certainly done more to learn about me than any of my other masters. He's taught me how to read, let me pick out most of my own clothes, and now given me the opportunity to practice dancing. Not because he needs the skill or thinks it might be entertaining, but simply because I admitted that I liked it. The thought makes me giddy. I've seen the gymnasium before, but I've never been inside, and suddenly the curiosity is overwhelming. I hurriedly throw everything into my bag and sling it over my shoulder, signing out of the care center and continuing out the doors alone for the first time. There's some feeling that rises in me, making me almost lightheaded as I walk through the empty halls. The closest thing I've ever done to running. All too soon I see that the halls are not as empty as they had first appeared. There's a man leaning against a desk at the great arch that marks the exit of the main building. My stride slows as I approach, feeling at once guilty and a bit fearful. You have permission, I remind myself. You don't need to be afraid. The reassurance doesn't do much when he spots me. He moves to block my path, and it's all I can do to not let my steps falter. I'm not doing anything wrong. I have permission to be out. But that doesn't mean his stare doesn't make me feel like an insect behind glass.
Oh, and what's a cute little thing like you doing outside its cage?
He halts me before I can get through the door. He crowds into my personal space, looming over me. There's an impulse there to run, but I just let my eyes fall to the floor and make myself a little smaller. He doesn't seem to be angry, and I have to force myself to breathe regularly. I have permission to be out. It's fine.
Run along now, else I might have to drag you back myself. Your master wouldn't like that pretty face of yours bruised, now would he? He continues, as apparently I've been quiet too long.
I try to speak, try to tell him that I have permission to be out, that my master would very much not like to find me bruised, anything that would get me out of here. But the words die in my throat. The shaking in my hands has returned, and suddenly I'm a little kid again, caught wandering the property after hours. I feel like I'm going to throw up. He probably isn't allowed to punish other students' familiars. The reassurance comes hollow as I realize that just means that he'd bring up my offenses to my master.
What's this?
He asks. The feral grin spreading across his features is making me squirm. I want to get out of here.
Trying to give me an excuse, little kitty? You want me to drag you back?
My pulse is racing in my ears as I shove the little plastic card forward so that it is between us, as though a little card can protect me. But it does put him off balance. He takes a step back to read the print on it before muttering a litany of curses.
You got permission to be out, then? Well, what are you hiding it for? You trying to get me in trouble?
He accuses.
No, sir,
I stutter. My head feels light with relief, and it only hits me now that I wasn't really expecting this to work.
Well, then make sure you keep it on you.
He pauses again before he grabs at the fabric of my shirt, pulling me with him as he goes behind his desk. Stars, my pulse is pounding in my head. What the hell does he want with me? I've given him my card. He knows I have permission to be out. Isn't that enough? Can't I leave? He takes my card, and I have to suppress a whine. I just got that. Master went through a lot of trouble to get it, and if I lost it the first day I tried to use it, I doubt he'd get me another. But the guard turns back to me and returns my card, along with a shiny little clip, not unlike the ones I've seen Master use to keep papers together. I stare blankly at the two objects. It's clear that he's offering both of them to me, but I can't figure out their purpose. In the end, I must take too long because the man simply huffs impatiently. The pretty ones are always so dense. I hear him whisper as he grabs me by the shirt again and pulls me forward. The clip goes into the collar of my shirt, and the card gets tucked neatly against that. The clip is cool, though it warms rapidly against my skin, but the weight of the card against my chest stays. The tiny card can't weigh more than a few ounces, but for some reason the press of it into my chest is making it hard to breathe. I can feel my cheeks heat as the true humiliation of this moment begins to set in.
Well, I didn't know you kitties could change colors like that,
he mumbles almost to himself, bringing his hands up to brush my heated cheeks. I try to pull away as I feel tears begin to pool at the corners of my eyes, but he's still holding me by the front of my shirt. Why am I even embarrassed, anyway? I've had worse than this. I've lived through a lot worse than this.
Hey now, don't get all weepy,
he says with gentleness so fake that I almost flinch away when he pulls my gaze up to him.
We only have to do this with the stupid ones who don't show their cards. I'm sure you'll get used to it, or maybe your master will properly train you.
I want to scream, bite him, or hell, just run away from this man. But all I do is mumble a quick, "Yes, sir," and he dismisses me. The walk to the gym passes in a blur. I keep my head down and walk fast, trying to make it seem like I have a quite urgent purpose. I don't want to get stopped again. The gym building isn't very impressive, though it is expansive. It's a long, 2-story building done up in red brick with wide panes of glass. The brickwork hasn't been redone in a while, and some of the eastern side is being overgrown with ivy, but it seems to serve its function. Not many people seem to come here. There's an attendant at the front desk, a very tired, older-looking coati who's stacking pencils in intricate patterns on her desk. She's wearing a shirt with the school's emblem on it. I haven't seen many of those, but I'm not unfamiliar with what it means. She belongs to the school, not a student. I wonder if this is her usual post, or if they shuffle their assets around the school over time. Either way, she's bored enough to perk up at my entrance.
"Oh, dearie, you by yourself, then?"
Her words come out in a rush that I wasn't expecting as her relaxed demeanor becomes notably more excited.
"Yes,
I rack my brain trying to remember if I've seen this familiar around the school before. If I have, then I certainly haven't gotten her name, but she seems to see the question on my face before I can ask.
You can call me Coach, all the rest do. Some kind of joke that I couldn't make out, but it stuck, so what brings you to my neck of the woods?"
she asks. Well, I was looking for a place to train for a bit. I start to explain, but I'm cut off by the flurry of movement. She nearly flips around in her seat, bringing up something from one of her drawers. It takes me a minute to recognize it as a book that she's leafing through at lightning speeds.
"What kind of room do you need, dearie?"
She looks back up at me, her quirked little grin back in place. If You have a space that could be used for dance? I offer sheepishly.
Oh, I've got a big old room with mirrors and those big stretching bars. Most of the students end up using it to try and contact ghosts, like any looking glass will do.
She giggles into the back of her hand, and I can't help but smile. Hers is contagious. That sounds wonderful. I giggle with her.
All right, that's 224. That'll be up the stairs and down on the left. Here's your key. You turn that back into me and be sure to clean the space up when you're done,
she explains, passing me a small silvery key with a little placard sticking to it. I nod along with her instructions. If they don't need any more from me than to clean up after myself, that's more than fair. I find the room with very little hassle. She was right. It's the perfect dance space. I close the door and lock it behind me. It's helpful in more ways than one. The lock doesn't make this room perfectly safe, but it gives me at least the illusion of security. It lets my mind numb into the familiar routine, the exercises, the stretch and burn of my body, as I'm forced to exert myself in ways I haven't for months. The distraction is good in any case. It keeps my mind off the brewing storm that I've left behind. It keeps me from thinking about the fact that I haven't got a clue what I'm doing.